magic happens twice, right? What do I mean? The first time, when I'm showing you a trick and you're busy watching it and the final thing happens and you're like, wow, whatever. So that's the first time magic happens. And that's not what's important. What's important is the second time it happens. When you go and you tell your friend that this is what you saw, this is what you experienced, that's the second time magic happens, and that's the important one. Why? Because that's the story you tell, and it goes on and on and on and on. And if I've done my job correctly, the story you tell is way better than what I actually did.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Edit Undo Show. Today we are speaking to Ilan Smith. So Ilan and I actually know each other from our past. I got introduced to Ilan by my stepdad, who is a practicing side hustler in mentalism. And Ilan is actually someone who does this full time. So he is a behaviouralist, illusionist, a mentalist, and a motivational speaker. Now we're recording quite late. It's already 9 p.m. and if you know me, I'm probably already supposed to be in bed sleeping. But seeing as Ilan decided he's going to do a few tricks for us tonight on camera as well, I think this is something worth staying awake for. But Ilan, thanks so much for joining us.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. Looking forward.
I was actually just saying before we started recording, the last time I saw Ilan was probably about 10 years ago when we went to go see one of his magic shows at the Joburg State Theatre. Don't know what the name is right now, but I remember a few of the tricks. And when I was back on your website yesterday, I was looking at some of the videos and content you have. And there's this one trick you do in a picture framing shop with a card through the glass. Guys, I advise you go to his website if you can right now. Ilan Smith, that's ILANSMITH.com, Ilan Smith, and go look at this video because it is pretty fascinating. I mean, even if you are not into magic at all, just the craftsmanship, the pure storytelling and fascination around how this gets done. I think it just tells a lot about how we can make people see things we want them to see. And this is also one of the topics I'm excited to get into.
Looking forward.
Definitely.
So it's actually so interesting that you picked that one out. I always like to see what people remember and what people enjoy out of all the different things. It's nice to see, what you pick out.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, Ilan, to get us started, can you tell us how you got into this? Because this is not a very conventional profession. It's not something you can study, and this is something you're doing full-time, and you've been doing it full-time for a while. Where did it start?
It started where I think it begins for like most of us when I was a little kid. My dad bought me a little trick. We were on holiday in Durban. And at the, what do you call them? The like Sunday market, there was a guy selling magic tricks at the flea market. That was what it was called. Mm-hmm. The flea market, my dad bought me a single trick for 20 Rand, if I remember correctly. And by the end of the day, I went back to buy the second trick that he was selling. And by the end of the holiday, I owned 2 books. And the bug had bitten. The bug had bitten, and it was pretty much that just started. I was about 8 or 9 years old. But I got a lot more serious when I was maybe 15, about 14, 15, and I got a teacher. No, I was like 14 or 15. I got myself a teacher by the name of George Moss, and he was an elderly gentleman, but I was really lucky that he was involved and he taught me sleight of hand sort of magic, not your kids sort of thing. So right in the beginning, I was lucky to get into magic at like quite a high level, which I was really excited about.
Wow. Yeah.
That's amazing, and hopefully that's definitely something we can dive into later. I think, from my own personal perspective, that sort of mentorship or apprentice type relationship is something that I've got a personal interest in. But maybe one of the things that I'm a little bit interested about, I think there are many young kids who kind of have this dream of eventually being a magician, but it's like, even if that is what you're doing in your sort of developmental years, like, you still have to go to school and you still have to study because, you don't have control over your entire day. And it's kind of hard to convince parents that being a magician is going to be a full-time job. So, like, while you were learning that stuff, like, what did the rest of your life sort of look like?
So, truth be told, how do people say that? Truth be told, I'm hoping you're always saying the truth. But yeah, so basically, when I was in standard, we did standards back then. It was in grade like 10 and 11, I think, or 9 and 10. And I left my home and I went to another school in Johannesburg. I grew up in Pretoria, and I stayed at a hostel. And a friend of mine and myself were both doing magic together. And in standard 7, grade 9, I came very close to failing. So basically, every day after school, we used to sit for a couple of hours opposite each other at a table, and I would show him my favorite trick, close-up piece of magic, and he would watch and know where to look for all the problems, and anything he would spot, he would let me know, and I have to do it again. Once I got it good enough, he would then do that same trick back to me, and then he'll do his favorite trick. And then I'll do that back to him, and then my second favorite trick. And we went on and on like this for most of the year, until reports came home and parents got involved and all things like that. But most of my life, I've just been, doing this. I've been to university, studied economics and marketing. But my life and it just became a very natural way to look at the world through these eyes that, kind of look at the world this way.
Yeah.
That's
so
crazy.
I do have a question, considering that there's not a lot of people, or it's not a common profession to have, usually when you do either mentalism or illusionist magic tricks and stuff, people assume it's a side hustle, it's a hobby, because that's more common. Do people ever ask you, like, what do you do for a living?
They do. And when you tell them, so I used to say a magician. I haven't said that for years, though, but I say a magician. They would ask, what instrument do you play? Or, I swear, right, I don't know how many times. Or they would say, oh, a physician. I'm like, no.
That is
magician. So, this is not the most common thing. However, for whatever reason, living in South Africa, I thought that, it might be difficult to... Sorry, let's go back a step. When I started magic, and kind of now also, I find it hard to believe that you can do this for a living. Like, I still fall into that category. So I play around a lot, and thank God it's been very good for me. So originally I was involved with property. I used to buy property and fix them up and sell them and whatever. It worked well for me. The market changed and I wanted to get into something else. My wife didn't like what it did to my personality, and all this time throughout my life I'd always been working and earning money through entertainment, through magic and illusions. And it sounds crazy, but it took my wife a year to convince me to give up everything else and just do this. And since then till now, we're looking at probably about we're looking at just over about 12 and a half years. We have done nothing else, and all of that is magic and entertainment. So, but because this is the way I look at the world, like everyone goes, there's so few of you in the world. That's not true. I hang out with, a lot of, all my friends are magicians, and we all look at the world this way. But so you can go to magic conferences and to trade shows and all those wonderful things, and I started realizing that that, and like meeting up with corporates and entertaining for them, and then you get into discussions, I started realizing that we don't all look at the world the same way. And I come from a very unique background. And you start realizing that, no, not everyone looks at the world the way you do, because our experiences are different. We grew up in different places. Our experiences are different. Our parents are different. Our environments are different. So we look at the world differently. And I'm very thankful to be able to look at the world from a very unique perspective. So I bring that in, and I've created business talks from my perspective. And it's been pretty cool.
Sure. Yeah. And I also wanted to just briefly touch on the differences between illusionist stuff and work and mentalism, and what does that exactly mean? Because I think especially for someone, I just see it as blowing my mind in general. I'll group all of those together. But there's obviously different skill sets, and it's a niche. Can you maybe explain to us what those are?
The best way to explain it, a lot of entertainers or illusionists don't like saying this, or don't like that I say it, but I'm going to burst the bubble, but magic's not real, okay? What? So magic's not real. And I love the fact that it's not real, because if it's not real, how do you accomplish what you do? Because that's where the psychology comes into it, right? So because it's not real, all genres of magic or illusionary arts or mentalism, they're all actually, truth be told, they're actually all illusionary arts. It's all an illusion. It's a magic trick. But illusions and magic seems to be something that is more visual, something that like levitation or penetration or transportation or teleportation or whatever it might be, swapping one thing for something else, making something vanish, making something reappear, whatever it is. Mentalism has the feel as the idea that you're reading someone's mind, or you're predicting what someone would do, or you are giving them what they would feel is a free choice, but you're really influencing them in a certain way so they will come to a certain conclusion. However, that's what the effect looks like to the spectator. From the performance point of view, and from the methodology point of view, they're using this very similar or the same methods, but the outcome is different. Does it make sense?
Yeah,
so
it makes a lot of
when
sense.
you're reading someone's mind, you're obviously not really reading their mind. However, it feels very real, and it has the effect as if it were real. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Instead of using your methodology to make something levitate or make something disappear, reappear somewhere else, you're using that methodology to, so to speak, read someone's mind, or give the impression that you're reading their mind, or predicting what they would do, or whatever it is.
Yeah. So just something that kind of came off the back of that. Sorry, I was just, because one of the things that I've always thought a lot about illusionists and magicians is that it's very similar to some of the work that comedians do. And I almost see like, a stand-up comedy performance as using story to like lead your mind down a specific path and then sort of like change it mid story. When I think about some of Dave Chappelle's work, like the one, there's one specific special where he sort of says, he tells you the punchline at the beginning of the joke, and then he tells you the whole joke, and then he hits the punchline at the end. And it's sort of like, in some sense, it's comedy, but in another way, it's also, sleight of hand with linguistics in a kind of way.
Sleight of mouth.
Exactly. And I think, like, one of the things that I'm also interested in, and maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, because when I, from the few comedians that I've met and some of the interviews that I've watched, like, comedians sort of speak about how they sort of put together a set. And it's this process of kind of like going to a comedy bar or like a small audience and testing out a number of tricks until you've got like a full set. Testing out a number of jokes until you've got a full set of like consistently funny jokes. And I just was wondering, like, what does the process look of putting together like an illusionist show or like a mentalist show? Like, is it a similar kind of thing, or do you kind of maybe do it on your own and build your sort of like set of performances?
Okay, so
how does that look?
Sure, I can tell you what it looks like for me, obviously. I don't say generally. my corporate, so let's go back a step. As an example, Stephanie, you said, we had met a couple of years back at one of the shows called Dreams. So a show like that is, I would produce the show, but it's co-written by myself and a scriptwriter. That one, Dreams, was Nikita Costa. It was phenomenal. She also directed the show. So we would sit for a show like that, and then there's a lighting director. It was Oliver, who's phenomenal. Sure. Oliver Hauser is really awesome. There's a whole team of us that actually put it together. But the original spark of everything would obviously come from myself putting everything together. So it would be I would, at that stage, I'm choosing the different effects that I think would work in such a show that would get across the story I would like it to get across, and then when there's, so to speak, there's certain gaps of things that I don't have in my repertoire just yet, or I haven't thought of. But once you start building the show, you realize, will you need a bit of a change of feeling here, or you need something. Everything's been big up on stage and like a little bit distance from the audience, so you need something a little bit closer, to be able to feel that you bring the audience and the performer closer together. So you need a like close-up piece somewhere, and that's done through the effects that you choose. But also through the music and the lighting and all that sort of stuff. So generally speaking, when I have a stage show, what I try and do is, first of all, the feeling can't be the same all the way through. Obviously, you need ups and downs and things like that, right? You need a thread going all the way through. From the beginning to the end, you need a thread so the whole thing makes sense. Obviously, like it's any storytelling, right? But like I say, everything can't be scary, everything can't be happy, everything can't be shocking. It has to be a mixture of everything. You need something romantic, you need something big up on stage that is shocking, you need something that's small in the audience, that a camera would be on your hands and on you and it projects onto a screen. All these things are done on purpose for specific reasons. Like close-up magic I always put it in purely because it really brings the audience closer to the performer and the performer closer to the audience, and it feels like you get to know them, like sitting on the side of the stage and doing something, or building a little platform inside the audience and sitting on that platform and bringing a spectator up with you and doing something over there. It just brings the closest together, and you feel a lot of people come to the show wanting something, and this way you're able to tick more boxes. But very often people don't. They feel that they want this big thing up on stage. But humans want interaction. They want personality. They want to be able to feel that they've met someone, that they know someone. You want to hear like storytelling about them, about their life, and that happens through the show when you have this thread going through and you have these different items in the show. Makes sense?
It's actually it is. It's quite fascinating how intricate and complex it is, because I think, generally when you think about a magic trick being performed, you think of something that's just been rehearsed 100 times and you're just performing it. But for me, at least personally, my personal experience now with my my stepdad Wayne, who also explores mentalism and illusionist magic. What I've noticed is, which I really admire, is when you practice a new trick, it's basically you receiving a paintbrush, and that's it. You don't learn the process of painting the Mona Lisa. It's just the ability to hold that paintbrush. And now it's up to you to actually create the story around it and create the trick, which is a whole other dimension to it, because essentially just replicating a trick, doing it, that's not the magic feeling we get when we watch it. It's not that the trick in essence, it's actually the way you package it. It's the storytelling around it, what you do before, and that I've gained such a deeper appreciation for that. And now just knowing the amount of level of detail you have to go in to prepare a show, and every single trick can almost be different every time depending on the story you attach to it or the way you frame it.
Right. So people, I feel that when people come to a show, they, again, there's the consciousness of what someone wants to go and see, but there's also the underlying level of, yes, obviously we're taking for granted that the magic has to be great, has to hit them, has to be wow, it has to, like really hit home, it has to hit hard. But that's not really what they're there for. They're there for the experience. They're there to, escape from reality, so to speak. They're there to connect. And it isn't just the trick, for sure not. Where comedians don't have anything that they can use to be able to help them, we're really lucky that we have something that allows us through which to tell the story with.
Yeah, sure. And you've been speaking about storytelling as well, and using words, and you said you have a script writer that helps you. Is dialogue and words and the selection of words quite important?
It is. And when you have a script writer, as I started realizing this years ago, I created a really cool routine using a puzzle of Nelson Mandela. And there was a piece missing, and you had to find the missing piece. It was a whole beautiful script. And I paid someone to write the script for me. And the script came back, and they changed it, and it came back and forth. And I just couldn't say it because those words weren't mine at all. Like, you can see that's not mine. So from then on, it was that I would script with someone, and my wife would go through it afterwards because she knows me well, obviously. I like to believe. And she'll go through afterwards and she'll make tweaks and changes. But yes, each word is important. So the show is word for word, and every now and then you'll go off on a tangent because something happens live. But that's the part that has like realness to it. But that's what you have to learn how. Even though it's scripted, it has to be real. It has to, it really has to be a part of you.
Yeah.
Now, I really like what you're describing, and one of the things I guess that's kind of interesting for me. So actually, on Thursday, I'm going to be taking the stage for the first time. I'm speaking at a conference about mentorship. But as I was kind of going through the process of writing this talk, one of the things that I found is I've practiced with a few smaller groups, and one of the things I found is once you got you sort of write the body of what your message yourself, but when you tie in things that are happening live, it sort of changes it from something that you might from feeling like something that's been prepared and rehearsed to feeling like a discussion that you're having with the audience almost. And I really like to think about it as a discussion, even though only one person might be speaking. But, by the way the audience sort of reacts to something, and you kind of take that into account and, maybe go on off on a specific tangent, as you mentioned, you kind of allow, the audience to engage with you. And so one thing that I'm a little bit interested to sort of hear a little bit more about, because when I was looking on your site, and I think we mentioned earlier, you sort of say that you also do like corporate events or sort of business training. And, you wouldn't typically think that an illusionist or a magician sort of would fit into that same context. And then, over and above that, you also mentioned the fact that, in a sense, you had a different business outside of all of this beforehand, before you kind of went on this full time. So can you maybe chat a little bit about how you kind of got into that sort of corporate space, and sort of why you sort of thought that, what you were doing maybe could provide value in that kind of an environment?
Sure. So just to go back a step, being on stage and talking and going off script. So my director of my first show, Imagine, the director was a guy, Greg Homan, was a fantastic director. He used to hate it when I went off script. He was like shut up and then stick to the script. So I think my background is economics and marketing. I've always said, and I haven't said it for the last couple of years, but I used to say that this is not my area of expertise, but I've been doing this for most of my life, and I've stood on stages all over the world and entertained for thousands of people, and all this crazy stuff. But I think a actor, a professional actor who's up on stage doing his thing, he's said the lines thousands and thousands of times, or hundreds and hundreds of times, but he has the ability to make it sound like it's new and you're speaking to someone, right? I personally, I enjoy going off script a little bit. It makes it real and everything. And I've learned how to, because these words I'm giving over are mine, I am able to make those words touch someone because they're real. I talk about myself, I talk about real things, they're real. So even though I do go off tangent, and I think it's all right, and I don't know what Greg would say now, but even when you don't go off tangent and you speak those normal lines, now that I've either written them myself or I've been highly, highly involved in the writing of them, then they really are my words and they do feel real because they are. Cool. So that's the one side. The other side, corporate. I've been doing this entertaining since I was for corporates since I was 17, 18 years old or something like that, just purely because I thought there was it's impossible to make money or have a livelihood through theatre back in South Africa however many years ago. So from the beginning, that's where I was aiming. And up until about 5 years ago, I'd never entertained for children ever. And then I entertained once for my second son's class, 5-year-old kids at that stage, I think. The toughest 15 minutes I've ever had. I was sweating down. I'm just so not used to entertaining kids. So I've just naturally been, and my personality, I'm far more comfortable entertaining, you're like really big businessmen, big CEOs and all that sort of stuff, as opposed to entertaining kids. So I've just naturally gravitated that way, and because of my personality. And that's on the one hand. On the other hand, I have my enjoyments in life. I enjoy psychology. I enjoy why people do what they do, and behavioral illusionist. So I've mixed the two together, and hanging out in the corporate world, I've seen people, I've seen entertainment, and I've seen conferences, and these things can very often be very boring, and they need entertainment. They need things to switch left brain, right brain, all that sort of stuff. So it fitted in pretty, it was pretty simple for me to have gone to that garden path and found that that's what I would like to do. It had all my enjoyments, and there's a very, very big need there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like you said, especially in a space that needs it, which means it's actually even more rewarding doing it in that space because the people receive it unexpectedly almost.
Right.
So Alfie and I are both UX designers, user experience designers, and most of our day we look at how people interact with a interface and see how we can either make them click a button, do something on the screen, which is also a little bit linked to psychology. And I think that's the one topic I've seen overlap a bit with what you're saying. And I'm so curious and intrigued to hear more about just illusionist intelligence, so to say. Like, what social behaviors or behavioral engineering skills and techniques have you had to learn to better your illusionist tricks, or actually just to enable them to start with?
Okay, so sure. How much time have we got? So here it goes. So the part I love of this is that first of all, the best thing is that people think that we're infallible, that we know everything, see everything, and go to notice everything and remember everything. And that in and of itself is just phenomenal, because that's the furthest thing from the truth. So there's often, just to go back a little bit, within business talk, so from using magic as entertainment, I then started moving into, which I still do a lot of entertainment within magic and illusions and mentalism. I then started creating business talks and using my angle of things into those business talks. So when it comes to memory, and when it comes to how people behave, the skills involved. So magic is created in a way where, let me go back a bit. Let's try. Oh, yeah. There's a perfect analogy. So magic happens twice, right? What do I mean? The first time, when I'm showing you a trick and you're busy watching it and the final thing happens and you're like, wow, whatever. So that's the first time magic happens. And that's not what's important. What's important is the second time it happens. When you go and you tell your friend that this is what you saw, this is what you experienced, that's the second time magic happens, and that's the important one. Why? Because that's the story you tell, and it goes on and on and on and on. And if I've done my job correctly, the story you tell is way better than what I actually did. Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. So what happens
everyone
is,
watching.
Right. Basically, what happens is I would entertain you, and then I would hear you talking to your friend and say, oh, he did this thing, and you mixing the different things up that I did, and you embellishing it a little bit. And it's a fantasy sort of world of what you hope happened or you wished happened, or some things did happen, but not in the order you're referring to. And I'm just listening thinking, I wish I could do that. You know? But so how do we do that? And that's where the psychology comes into it. How do we plant, so to speak, false memories? How do we make magic tricks into something truly magical? And that's where the difference is. Where someone would watch and what they remember and they walk out having remembered is truly magical. And I can't do that, but I can have you have that feeling. Now, as an example, how do we do this? A very simple example would be, let's say, I don't have a coin. Okay. Can I get a coin? Can you give me a second?
Go for it.
Yeah, go get a coin.
Okay. So got one. Now, as an example, I've got remember these, old 1 rand coin. I just have them there because they go.
I think Alfie and I are too young.
I actually saw some old. No, that's the one.
Oh, now I feel like an old
right?
caca. Okay. So, magic is this. If I have the coin, I'm sitting down, I'll try to get the point across. I've got the coin in my hand, right? I want you to have the idea or the feeling that that coin was there and it disappeared. Now, that's not possible, right? Or there's a few methods that can be similar-ish. However, I can do something that will have you remember as close to possible that happening. Let me explain. So again, coin on the hand, give a click, vanishes. I can't do it, but I'd love you to remember that. Cool. Second best would be coin in the hand, close your hand, open it up, and it's vanished. Pretty damn good. Can't do that either. Or again, there's a few methods for that, but okay. Third thing is, if I have a coin in my hand, and what I can do, this is my magic wand, okay, just a pen, coin in my hand, I'm going to use the magic wand and then make it disappear. Now, really what happened is I have it in my right hand. I'm just palming it, so I'm not really putting it into my left hand. But what happens is this, is that if I were to do this, that's pretty strong. But if I were to have an internal dialogue of the coins in my hand, this right hand is full, I want to pick up my magic wand, I want to pick up my koki, my marker, but this hand's full. So because the hand's full, logically, just from a logistical point of view, I need to empty the hand, and then I can pick up the marker, right? So I'm keeping the coin inside the hand. But what I'm doing is I'm giving a realistic, real reason why I need to move the coin from my right hand into my left hand. So because the movement, it makes logical sense, your brain, you won't remember it as easily as if I were to just put it in my hand, transfer from one hand to the other. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
So again, if I give you the feeling of a real reason, a real excuse why I'm doing something, your brain doesn't seem to remember it as easily. Now, when I started coming up with these ideas and things like that, everything I'm saying is true. However, things have changed, and there actually are methods that you can hold a coin in your hand and then make it vanish also. So things have changed a bit from a technical point of view, but the theory is still true. Basically, the way it works is this, from a psychological perspective, is like this. We have, so to speak, in front of our brains, we have something called a schema, which is like a sieve. That only allows in 110 units of computing power per second, right? So what happens is our brains naturally block out anything it would seem to be superfluous. It only lets in things that our brain thinks we need for our survival, or we feel that is important at that moment. Example, if you're busy driving down a highway and you're busy listening to music, you can hear the music, everything's going, it's beautiful, the windows open, you can feel the wind. As soon as someone comes in front of you and they swerve in front of you and they drive badly, all of a sudden you're not hearing music, you're not feeling the wind, you're not doing anything, you just focus solely on your survival. Everything else is blocked out. Yeah. So if you, from a magic perspective, if you create the routine in such a way that things feel superfluous, right, all the parts that are important, you make it feel as if it is just haphazard or something that just logistically needs to get done, they won't remember as much because they don't put as much attention on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it?
Okay.
So
I feel like this is almost like the terms and conditions tick box when you sign up for apps, because this is a pattern and an expectation we have done so many times, and you're in routine, but in a very bad way, and you just focus on the main tasks and kind of you don't see it.
And you highlight and make bold words and words that shouldn't really be bold, and you leave other words small that people need to see. Yes. So that's pretty much. So in other words, we all do the same thing.
That's crazy.
Just I think
it's almost like what the mentalist or illusionist is doing versus what the audience is seeing are two different things. Because, like, to me, it almost seems like the audience is focused on specific things that you as the mentalist wants the audience to focus on, but the areas where your technique or your routine is focused on are the areas which the audience is not thinking about. And so it's kind of like there are these two different tracks that are headed in different directions, and because of that, there ends up being like almost logical flaws in the audience's brain, which is super interesting.
100%. But what's interesting is, so when I give lectures about this, I refer to it as that the magic happens for the audience at a certain time, and the magic happens for the magician at a different time. So that's what you're referring to. When you say the magic happens for the audience is when you open up this hand and it's vanished, that's the time the magic happens for the audience. When it happens for the magician is when the actual work's been done. Now, as much as possible, we try and not have them happen simultaneously, either within time or within space. Right? Sometimes, like where the magic happens and where you reveal that the coin's gone. Let's just keep that analogy. Shouldn't be close together within time and space. Fine. So what you're saying is right. That things happen differently. When there's a concept, you can go online and check it out. It's called the Invisible Gorilla. There's a cool book about it.
Yes.
I don't have it yet.
We know it.
So, have you seen it?
Yes.
It's absolutely phenomenal. And it's just because you're not expecting that at that time. It's about human focus. And the best thing is, so I use similar ideas during one of my talks. We talk about something like this, where in the beginning of the talk, I would have a audience member come up on stage, and at the end of that effect that we're doing on stage, I'll have everyone take out their phones and take a picture of us standing on stage next to each other. At the end of the talk, and we're talking about human psychology and focus and attention, all these things. What's so cool is that when you talk to people, they think the ideas are wonderful, but they wouldn't, so to speak, fall for that they don't think that way. They would notice. So by the end of the talk, I would ask, how many of you have noticed anything change within me, like of my clothing. Very few people notice. There are some, but about 80% of people don't notice. My jacket has changed color, my shirt has changed color, and my pants. And I haven't left the stage. So I'm using a magic trick method, but it's the idea of you see, I don't need to prove anything to you now. I'm just, I've just shown you that yes, this is real. This is people's attention or lack of attention, or just because you're humans. And whoever doesn't believe it, you take out your phone and you look at the previous picture and you can see things have changed. So again, the methodology is not really what I'm actually excited about. What I'm excited about is how you can use that in your talk to make a point, right? Yeah. And then I'm excited about why people don't see that. Because magic's not real, then there's a method. How come I can't see that method? How come I can't think of it?
Yeah.
And you're talking about the methodologies aren't interesting, but to me they are. And especially in today's age, I think there's also a lot of responsibility we have, like you have, right? As someone also teaching these techniques for people in business, because these methodologies and techniques can also be misused in some way. Because yes, we can use it to create pleasure for people, to help them complete positive action, so to say, for me and Alfie and our jobs. But in some instances, you do see people use illusionist tricks to play on people's emotions, especially in like marketing or scamming and stuff like that, where it can be used very wrongly.
Can be used and is used, yes, very much so. I don't know how much you want to go into this or not, but like even your ideas of like your fraudsters or your speaking to the dead and all that sort of stuff. All these things they use trick methods, and from anyone who is relatively well versed, you don't even have to be that knowledgeable within magic and illusionary arts. You can see what they're doing is fake. And it's just extremely fraudulent and disgusting to watch. But so from that point of view, from social engineering, which I'm a huge fan, I love social engineering and ideas behind it as well.
Can you maybe tell us a little bit about what social engineering is? I don't think it's a term that necessarily the layman would come across.
So social engineering just means... the general term means that you, through communication with someone, either verbal or over a telephone communication or email or WhatsApp, SMS, any sort of communication with someone, you can get them to behave in a certain way. You can get them to take certain actions. That's the general understanding of it. However, when people usually use the term social engineering, it's referring to exactly what I said, but the actions you're getting them to take are unfortunately fraudulent. It would be where they would be handing over money or handing over information about a company or passwords or anything like that. So it's a lot of people know about phishing, getting their social engineering through emails. It's massive nowadays, massive concerns.
Yeah. I think especially in all, Steph and I originally met at a bank, and so every time we'd have to do the compliance training, phishing was something that would always come up. But something maybe that might be a little bit interesting, and I don't know if you've got any examples of how social engineering could be used in a positive fashion.
Yes.
I don't know if that's something that you've thought about, or any ideas, or generally how you engage with it.
So, social engineering from a positive perspective would be things like, something simple. It's an example from a book that I read. They did experiments where the guys who were doing the experiments went to two different communities, like nice, beautiful picket fence, beautiful Pleasantville places around the States, and then asked them if they would put up a big sign on their property, things about social interests, about kids playing and raising money for the schools, or it's something pretty, something nice. And the vast majority of people said no, because the signs were big, and they were doing an experiment on purpose. They were big, and they weren't the most pretty looking signs. Then what they did was, a while later, they went back to these people, as someone else went to them and asked, would you please put up, and they gave them a very small sign to put onto their lawn to say that they support whatever initiative, but something small, a nice pretty looking sign, and it was small, and most people said yes. Once they said yes, they went back to them a third time now. They went back to the guys that said yes, and they asked them, would you put up this big sign that they previously had asked them about? And the majority of people that put the small sign said yes to that bigger sign now. And basically what happened was they changed their feelings to be, now you are someone who cares about society. Because you put up this little sign on your grass, they've now, or on your front lawn, you now become someone who is an advocate for whatever sort of, I don't know, hug a tree, or, whatever it is, children playing, just whatever sort of sign that is. But once you see yourself in that sort of environment, as I'm one of those people, you naturally would say yes to a bigger sign, something else that you would also stand for. So that would be that was socially engineered. They did that on purpose in that way. Something else, positive we're thinking of.
Well, not necessarily positive. I think what I'm trying to get at is like, okay, if we're not phishing and scamming and trying to steal your information, like what else could social engineering be used for, or what other contexts are there apart from, trying to steal money and steal people's identities?
Yeah, what else is, so when it comes to so here's another example. It's about building trust. So as an example, they had realtors, again, in the States, from a certain company, part of their sales pitch was, when they went to see someone in their house to go sign up a sole mandate, they would leave something in their car that they would have to go and fetch. So they would have the meeting, and then while they're busy talking, they need their calculator or something, whatever it is, and they don't have it, so they're going to go fetch it. They'll get up and go fetch it. The owner of the house would come walk with them and say, don't worry about it, I'll see myself out, and I'll be back in a minute. And they would let themselves out. They'll take the key, they'll let themselves out. The owner would let themselves out and then come back in naturally by themselves. Now, the idea of this is purely just to build trust, because the only person you're going to let into your house by themselves, or let out of your house by themselves, is someone that you trust. So if I can do something, or I get you to allow me to do something that would fall into the category, into the box of the only people that I allow do that in my life are people who I trust, or people who are close to me. So therefore, if you're doing that, you obviously must be trustworthy, or right? Yeah. So
that's very interesting.
That builds trust. And sales is all about trust. Like, people talk about doing business with whatever company. No, you're not. You're doing business with so-and-so, who is the marketing director or the whatever of whatever company. It's people. Everything's about people. It's about understanding people. And it's about trust. So if you can build that trust, and unfortunately that's what fraudsters do. They build the trust, unfortunately, through these methods, and then they take advantage of it. But we're talking about the positive ones.
Yeah.
And I think maybe then it's because it's easy to sort of think that some social engineering is positive and some is negative, but in some sense maybe it's more a tool rather than something that's negative or positive. I always think about the idea of like a knife. In one person's hand, a knife is something to kill someone. In another person's hand, a knife is something to prepare food. And so in a sense, social engineering is just a tool that you use.
100%. So people use the terminology social engineering as if it's only for like forces. It's not. It's used. We all use it every single day in most of our relationships. Like, as example, so I've been blessed with 5 children. I've got 2 boys. I've got 3 girls. My eldest daughter is, not joking, my eldest daughter is 10, and I came home. It was a Sunday afternoon, and she had a spa in our house, right? A spa. So I was lying back on our couch with cucumbers on my eyes, and she was doing my hands, and she did my feet. And if anyone else ever asked me, "Can I, do your hands?" Are you insane? But my daughter just had to ask. She didn't even have to talk me into it. It was a fun thing for my daughter. Then, why not? And it was actually very pleasant. It was very nice. So I was socially engineered, because if anyone else asked that, I would say no. But because it's her and she's sweet and she asked me in a way, I said yes, and I didn't even have to think twice about it. So there's some photograph floating around the internet on one of the social media things of this bearded guy with cucumbers.
I love that.
Yeah.
Another thing I really wanted to ask you about, Ilan, which is, like you mentioned in the beginning, you have quite a unique background that plays into how you create magic, how you practice mentalism. So you're very open about your religion and being a illusionist and a mentalist. And I admire that, but I'm quite curious, when you started going on this journey, and especially for other people listening, did you find that there was any resistance, or maybe even still, with the, because like you said, people have this concept of what magic is, and it's trickery, and we're tricking people. Was there any either internal conflict that you had, or conflict you've had with other people?
Very interesting question. So, a very quick rundown. Basically, I actually haven't been religious all my life. I've been doing magic for longer than I've been religious for. But I've been religious for 20 odd years, whatever it is. I don't know, long enough. So when I started becoming more religious, I then started looking, is it a problem, and all that sort of stuff. So from a Jewish perspective, because even though you're religious, there's different religions and they look at things differently. So from a Jewish perspective, as long as someone's not doing real magic, which unfortunately I don't know how to do. I haven't seen real magic ever, actually.
Except love.
I've looked into it quite a bit myself, and there's a lot of things people say are real, and I used to at a stage make it my duty to go see these things and see if it's real or not. I've never seen anything real, but you're not allowed to do anything real, and you're not allowed to do anything that people you can't make people think that it's real. So before I was religious, I never wanted that. Like, for me, magic and illusions and mentalism wasn't that. It wasn't to have people think I have these powers to do these sort of things. It was for enjoyment purposes, always. So when I started becoming religious, it really didn't make any difference whatsoever. Either way, it still fitted into my understanding and my background of what I wanted from magic and from my life. And to misguide someone to think it's real and all this sort of stuff, I absolutely cannot stand it. So much so that when a magician or illusionist or a mentalist comes out and they make it like they're real, it drives me absolutely insane, and I do fight it, actually, because it just lies. That's from that point of view. I grew up in Pretoria, which I don't know what it's like now, but when I was growing up there, it was a lot more conservative, I think. And I had been told by some people that you're not allowed to do that, it's the devil worship, and they were not Jewish. It was other religions but they didn't even want to see. They didn't even want to understand that it's not real or anything. They just nothing. So I was like, okay, not for you. That's perfectly fine. It's a free world.
I always found that to be interesting because, people will say that pretty much anything is from the devil, from Pokemon to card games.
Pokemon. We all know that.
Exactly. But
I've had emails about people who will pray for me and all those wonderful things. We all live our life. It's fine.
Exactly.
The only thing I would ask is be a little open-minded to be able to at least say, I'm happy to even show you how some things are done, just to show you that it's not real. But we'll live our own lives. It's fine.
And I agree. I mean, I have quite a similar experience. I became a yoga teacher when I was 19. And especially, like you say, also growing up in a certain conservative community, yoga comes from a religious background, a very religious country and origin, but there's various different ways of practicing it. It can be from a physical perspective, a mental perspective, whether you're doing just mindfulness or meditation, and also having a lot of conflict either with my inner circle and friends or just people imposing their ideas on you. And it is something just in general in life, we kind of have to make peace with, like you say, we all have our own lives, and you know what your values are and your beliefs are and what's true to you. And that's kind of the most important part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just think that like it's interesting that people are very happy to push their ideas onto you, but they won't even wait 2 seconds to have a response. Or I'm not interested in that. Thank you.
Exactly.
If you want a real discussion and sit down and have an absolute pleasure, you want to shout something at me? No, sorry.
Exactly. But all right, you told us now a few times that you don't practice real magic, and it's not real. Can you maybe show us
something real?
Yes.
Let's do this. Yeah. Let me show you something cool. Right. So I'll show you two things. Let's go. We've got a wine glass. This was, when alcohol was banned. Unfortunately, this is what I use my wine glasses for. It's quite depressing. There's a couple of cards. There's a couple of cards in there. Besides for that, I'm going to take my watch off. We're going to do something with a watch. Give me a second. Cool. Elfie.
Yes.
I don't know how well I know you, but through this discussion, I'm hoping this is going to work. I've got the time now currently is 10 o'clock, yes?
Yep.
I mean, you can see, but you can look at your own watches also, right? Okay, It's 10 o'clock. Elfie, I'm going to ask you, can you think of something that happened in your life, something positive, preferably, something big that happened in your life, something positive? I'm not going to ask you what it was, so it can be private, it's perfectly fine, that's not my business. But I am going to ask you the time that it happened, the hours and the minutes. Don't tell me what it is just yet, just think about it and let me know that you have something.
Ooh, okay. Give me a few seconds to think about it.
Take your time. Stephanie, in the meantime, I'm going to ask you to think of a card. In a pack of cards, there are 52 cards. Let's try to get this into the screen here.
Okay.
Okay, that's here. If I put... Okay, Elfie, have you got something?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And the time, I just want you to think of the time like bold, right? In your mind, just think, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
The time's 10 o'clock currently, but we're going to do that. Okay. I'm going to commit myself. I'm going to put this, I'll put this here. Can you see that there?
Yeah.
I'm going to light down. Can you still see that there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Elfie, again, I'm not going to ask you what it was, but I am going to ask you the time that it happened. What was the hour?
11.
PM, AM?
11 a.m.
And any minutes to it?
It was 11:30 was the
on the dot.
Yeah. Well, as far as I can remember, but it was about 11:30. Okay. Yeah.
Close enough. Perfect. Thank you. And Stephanie, I'm going to ask you to think of a card.
Yeah.
Now, there's 52 cards in a pack of cards, but before we do this, I sort of just 11:30. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I get the light in there.
Yeah, just move it a bit back for the focus. Oh, yeah, that's 11:30.
Yeah? Can you see it?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's good. Don't want to.
Good.
That's crazy.
But it's currently 10:30. What was it? 10 or 10:30?
It's
It's
10.
currently 10.
10. Okay, cool. I'll put that back. Good.
Yo.
So that's your time. If you want to tell us what it is, you can, but you don't have to. It's private and whatever. But if you do feel the need to be able to tell us what that is, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, so it was when my first international talk was confirmed. Yeah,
First?
like when I got the email. International public speaking gig.
Awesome. That's very cool. And that was recently now because you said that you're going on stage.
So it's not this one, but it was about 2 weeks back.
Awesome, very
but
cool.
that's happening in
February
next year.
Good. Okay, Stephanie, a pack of cards has 52 cards in them. I want you to think of any one card, just one card. You can tell us out loud what it is.
I'm thinking of
Clubs, hearts, diamonds, spades, ace to king.
diamonds.
Diamonds.
Yeah.
Mm.
Which one? You have to...
Oh,
Because there's 13 of those.
10.
Say again?
The 10 of diamonds.
10 of diamonds. Again, that's an absolute free choice, right?
I would hope so, yes.
Well, that's important. It's either going to be a yes or a no,
Yes.
right? Okay, good. So the reason why I'm asking you that is because you'll see, just come closer here, you'll see this. This isn't a single card. Can you see this is like a bunch of cards,
Yeah.
right? Can you give me a number between, let's say, 5 and 12? Just because there's only very few cards here. Between 5 and 12, any number.
7.
7. 7 and the 10 of diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3. Thank you for going for a small number. That was 4, 5, 6.
What?
You said 7. The 7th card is red. And the card you wanted was the?
10 of diamonds.
Oh, man.
You know what's really crazy? The 10 of diamonds, the truth is you had no other option. You had to choose the 10 because all of these are all blank.
Is this real magic?
I think. Put this down so it doesn't drop. Yes. Cool. So, what was interesting was during COVID, we had to, create from a creative producer's point of view. It was really fun, but I had the idea of I don't want to just entertain like exactly what you would do in a normal show. Just put a camera in front of you and have people watch because that's really boring. So you can go watch Netflix, right? You don't need to. You can watch hundreds of things that are far more entertaining. If you want to watch a show, I want to get you to pay money and watch a show. I don't want you just to watch it. I need you to be involved in it. I need you to experience something that you can't do while you're watching Netflix or anything like that. So we created magic that would actually happen on the other side of the screen, which I'm not going to do now purely because guys are going to watch this and they can rewind and watch it again and then start picking up secrets. So, but these sort of pieces came from that, that sort of need to create online sort of magic. And it's really cool, entertaining from your lot of office all over the world simultaneously, and you have people, the magic travels through the screen, and it's really cool.
Yeah. I can see Alfie is still like a bit in shock.
I've always loved magic, like from the movies to performances to sort of street musicians. Like for a little bit, I would even learn a few tricks myself. So I always really appreciate sort of seeing the art being performed. And I really think about it as an art form because, you know, like, in some sense, it's got a performance aspect. It's got a craft like any other art form. And so, like, I really appreciate it.
Very cool. There was two of us. I just really love it. Actually,
So-
no. Can I show you one more?
Yes, please.
Of
Please.
All the time. Well, whatever. If we have time, great. If we don't, then you'll just cut it out in the edit or whatever it is, right? So we'll make this table go up a little bit. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. And this is going to be for both of you, Alfie and Stephanie. Here goes. You're going to do this. Wobbles a little bit. Okay. I'll do that and then I'll show it up to the screen. We have a red card. It's like this. You can see, yes. Okay, good. Red and actually, no, what? Do a sec. Tilt it. No, okay. Red. We have black. We have black, and we have red. It's pretty simple. Red and black. Two different piles, correct? We're just going to use half a pack. We're not going to go do so many. Good. Okay. So we have a red pile. Just get this in the middle there, and we have a black pile. I'm going to hold up a card like this. Alfie, you're going to tell me if you want me to put it on the red pile or you want me to put it on the black pile. Up to you.
Red pile.
Cool. And again.
Red pile.
And again.
Black pile. Black pile.
Good. We've got these cards to get through. It's going to you're going to do half of them. Let's go.
Oh, okay. So red. Black. Red. Red. Black. Red. Red.
Two more.
Red. And black.
Perfect. Stephanie, the last ones are yours. Let's go.
Okay. Okay, black. Black. Red. Red. Black. Red. 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 Black. Red. Red. Black.
Last one.
Black.
Black.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, cool. So that was all free choice, right?
Yes.
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 Stephanie, that's for you also. Free choice, yes.
Yes.
So you could have chosen any piles to go left, right, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
This is the black pile. I can see Alfie getting a little bit, That's the black pile, that's the red pile. So give
Yes.
it's in camera shots.
What?
Yo.
Every single card is red. And of course, every single card
No.
is black.
What?
So,
You can see there, yeah?
yeah, I
Yes.
could see.
I'm questioning whether I should be believing my eyes, but I can definitely see. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, in 2000 and, 2000 and whenever, I went into some radio stations, 94.7, 702, 5 FM, and I can't remember one other. And I made a prediction of who would win the World Cup. It was the Soccer World Cup. It was 2010. I did the game in 14 and 2018. But basically what happened was I was with DJ Fresh in 5 FM. And I was saying that this is not real magic and all that stuff. And before the quarterfinals, I gave him a prediction in an envelope. He signed a piece of paper. I wrote my prediction on the other side, put it into an envelope, signed the envelope. He kept it in this little safe. We met after the finals. We opened it up, and I predicted who the two teams would be and what the score would be. Right? And I was correct. When I get back into my car afterwards, I turn on the radio and I'm hearing him talk, and he's like, I don't get it. Ilan says magic's not real, but I'm sitting here with this piece of paper that says whoever wins, and this is the score. Like how's it not possible? Like how's it not real? What do you mean? I'm holding the paper. So that got me to saying, magic's not real, but if it were, this is what it would look like. So it was just cool stuff.
And like, that's a crazy thing. It's kind of like, do I believe you, the person doing the magic, saying that it's not real, and disregard reality? Or do I believe reality and disbelieve what you're telling me?
I like it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Disbelieve reality.
I have to say, yeah, I really enjoyed this. Definitely kind of coming to a close on a high note. But it's really, it's amazing. And, regardless of the sort of creative discipline or the space that people are playing in, it's always such a joy to see someone performing their craft and a person that's kind of really spent the time to master it. So firstly, I just want to say thank you.
I think maybe
as to kind of wrap this thing up, we've kind of got a segment on the podcast that we like to do to kind of bring our guests together virtually. And so we essentially give our previous guest the opportunity to ask our current guest a question. And so our previous guest...
It's not a magic trick.
No, we're definitely
you can
traveling
find it
through
in
time.
your back pocket.
But so our last guest was a freelance creative director and a 3D visual artist. Very, very, very talented. And his question was... how do you deal with failure?
How do I deal with failure?
Yeah.
I hold on to it and I love it.
Okay.
Real. Are you talking about live during a show, or are you talking about in life?
Generally, yeah.
However.
But either you can sort of take it how you
So
however.
if you're not failing, then you're not trying anything. When you might as well not exist, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
and unfortunately, also like at times we're like too scared to fail, but then you end up not doing anything. So we have to push ourselves to. Failing's okay. It's important. It's necessary.
Absolutely, and I definitely have a similar feeling around failure. But I feel like this question was so perfect because Ilan, in the beginning of the episode, you kind of started with the story of you in your school days and you and a friend practicing the tricks and until you fail and pointing out the mistakes, and that already kind of set the stage for your answer now, which is, kind of how you deal with failure, which is just like taking it head on and learning from it, letting it be a tool rather than something that brings you down.
100%. So again, don't get me wrong, easier said than done, but it's true. I jokingly say that because I'm married, I'm able to take criticism, but to stand on a stage and have a director, their job is to point out problems and where you're going wrong and what you're doing, and it's tough. But unless you're doing that, then if you're not doing that, then you're not growing and you're not perfecting anything.
Yeah.
It's tough, but it's important.
Yeah.
It's far tougher not doing it because then you're not doing anything.
Absolutely, I 100%
Very
agree
true.
with that statement. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ilan. It's been so nice just seeing you again, being in this world of magic again. And I think both Alfie and I, we've learned a lot, but I think we've also seen a lot of parallels to what we've done, which is really fascinating as well, which I've really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Really was my pleasure. It was really cool. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Then maybe lastly, if there's anyone listening that wants to reach out to you, follow what you're doing, maybe reach out to you to get you into the corporate space or office, where can they find you? So
on all your socials, Ilan Smith, ILAN, Ilan Smith, Illusionist, or just Ilan Smith, and ilansmith.com.
Perfect.
ILANSMITH.
And we will put those links in the show notes as well as in the announcement post. So if you're bad at spelling, like definitely Alfie and I are.
And me. And
You
me.
can just go click on the link.
So if you want to like we're traveling around the world, off again tomorrow to El Paso, Texas. So get onto Instagram and follow, and we'll take you around and show tricks to strangers on the street, and then take you into the show, and we'll be actually there for a show. It was just a lot of fun.
That's so cool. I'm definitely going to follow along, but best of luck for the journey ahead and safe travels.
Thank you very much. And all the best to you guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And to everyone listening, thanks for staying awake with us. If you're listening in the morning, welcome. If you're listening in the evening, we will catch you next week.